Hello. I am delighted and honored that you're here with us today. And we are having a series of interviews with peace leaders. And those interviews began Friday, the 17th, and they're running until the 23rd. And they are a lead up to the beloved Community Convergence by Compassion Games, which is February 24th and 25th, and to Humanity Rising's summit on the Ukraine. And so we're calling this series of interviews Pathways to Peace in the Ukraine. And so I'm honored and delighted to have you with me today, Monica Willard. And in a minute, I'm going to say a little bit more about Monica and her work. And I want to say that I feel Monica as a soul sister, but even more than that, she is a longtime partner with Pathways to Peace. And so welcome, 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 Monica.
Thank you, Tez. It's a pleasure to be with you.
Yes. So let me tell our audience a little bit more about you. So Monica represents United Religions Initiative, URI, and the United Nations NGO representative. And she is an incredible advocate for peace, both within and outside of the UN. Monica has served as an NGO representative to the United Nations for over 30 years. She is a founding member and UN NGO representative for the United Religions Initiative, that is the largest grassroots interfaith organization with members in 116 countries. Monica's work with the UN includes annual events with the UN Department of Global Communications for the International Day of Peace and with the UN Interagency Task Force for the annual symposium on religion and faith-based organizations in international affairs. As president of the Committee of Religious NGOs at the UN, Monica was instrumental in establishing World Interfaith Harmony Week, including 2 observances held with the presidents of the General Assembly. Monica is an active member of the URI Voices for a World Free of Nuclear Weapons Cooperation Circle. And Voices started Nuclear Prayer Day. Voices started Nuclear Prayer Day on August 6, 2022, and is currently planning the 2nd annual event for August 2023. Your work for a world free of nuclear weapons, Monica, is so needed and so appreciated. And I personally, along with the Pathways to Peace team, is just delighted to have been able to work with you around that last year. Look forward to this upcoming year. So with that, this is a very loose interview, Monica. And by loose, I mean that I am going to prompt you with some questions, but I don't want you to be limited by those, because really what I want to hear and what I want the audience here to hear is really whatever you think is important for us to know, whatever is on your heart, and whatever you'd like to tell us. So please don't be limited by those questions. So having said that, and to prompt the conversation, my first question is, please tell me about your personal pathway to peace, your story, and where it has taken you.
That's a great question, Tez, and I thank you, and I'm honored to be here, not just as a peace builder, but also as your friend and a friend of Pathways to Peace.
Yes.
I started my work basically when I moved to New York. I was very involved with the American Association of University Women. And someone brought a project in, and it was called The Ribbon. And in 1984, people were making ribbons, which I will show you a beautiful panel of one. It is on blue velvet. You can see the world. And this answers the question, put onto cloth what you cannot bear to see lost forever in the event of a nuclear war. So this artist did the world. My panel was done. I know this will surprise you, Tez. We brought it to an AAUW meeting. And so it was done with a lot of people doing their little piece with the, so it started out as a collaborative effort.
Wonderful.
And I added my family because that's one of the first things I think of as lost forever. It isn't just the people who are bombed. It is the genetic, it is the pollution, it is nuclear winter, it is so much. And I think people don't understand the quantum difference between the war as we see destruction of buildings in the Ukraine, and to have it be a year this week brings tears to my eyes that we haven't thought of better ways of negotiating into peace, because war doesn't work. It eventually leads to more war and bigger weapons and more weapons. And we only have one planet, and it's time we make this shift. So peace building is more essential than ever. And I'll go back to the ribbon because it was really a source of a lot of dedication by a lot of people, because this is a 3 foot by 18 inches, foot and a half panel with ties on each corner. And it was to tie the hopes, dreams, and prayers of people together to circle the Pentagon, to remind them, like the yellow ribbon used to remind people of something, to use a ribbon with the pictures, with the hopes, with the care, the love. And some were made by, a handprint of a small child. Some were made by artists. Some were made with knitting and embroidery and all kinds of things. But Justine Merritt had this idea, and she said, how can I just embroider and not do something when the world has nuclear weapons? What can I do that would make a little bit of difference? And so she asked people on a Christmas card list in 1983 to join her at the Pentagon in 1985 for the 40th anniversary of Hiroshima. And instead of having a few people from her Christmas card list, the project expanded, and 23 miles of these ribbon panels were tied around the Pentagon, across the bridge at Arlington, down both sides of the mall, all the way down to the Capitol. And they didn't even have enough people to hold all of the ribbons that had been made. And to predate Washington, they went to the state capitals on Mother's Day of May of 1985 and went to a ribbon for each state. New York did theirs in Albany. Minneapolis had them around the Capitol. They, all of the capitals did this. And then those ribbons were sent to Washington, D.C. for August. So it was a huge collaboration. And it involved a lot of the things that women do, because of sewing, tying together, prayer groups. It just tied it together, but it brought this subject of nuclear weapons into churches, into libraries, into schools in a way that was very tangible. Because what would you put on a ribbon if someone asked you to put what you could not think of as lost forever in the event of a nuclear? Because that's what we are facing today more than ever. And the prayers at that point, and along with strong negotiations between President Reagan and President Gorbachev, brought a whole range of intermediate weapons out of existence. And we've seen countries, like we saw Nelson Mandela give up nuclear weapons in South Africa. Kyrgyzstan gave up nuclear weapons to Russia when the breakup of the Soviet Union. We have to start seeing these kinds of shifts, because if we do not eliminate nuclear weapons, they will eliminate us. So that's my prayer, and that's
Yes.
my hope and passion. And
Yes.
August 6th is a date because it honors the bombing of Hiroshima. And we also think of August 9th because of Nagasaki.
Mhm.
And do pray that this horrible instrument of war is never used again.
Yes. Yes.
And may I share the nuclear prayer as a way to start out this conversation?
Absolutely. Of course. It's
The United
beautiful.
Religions Initiative has a cooperation circle, and it has probably 30 regular members, and it expands and contracts according to different times of the year in particular. But last year in August was the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty that had been postponed from 2020 was held last year in August. We said, let's use the Hiroshima date to really pray for this shift. And
Yes.
so we held what started out as a prayer vigil at the UN chapel to be a part of the NPT process and to bring people in at lunchtime to add their prayers, turned into a global event. And we had thousands of people praying, educating, and working together to really address the issue of nuclear weapons. And it was based on the prayer that I'm going to share. We called it the nuclear prayer because the founder of the United Religions Initiative is Bishop, who was the Episcopal Bishop of the state of California, William E. Swing. And Bill founded Voices because of his personal passion and because he had been in Washington, D.C., had worked with George Shultz when he was at the cathedral in Washington. He knew George Shultz, he knew other ambassadors, and those connections grew, and he brought together people who were dedicated to nuclear weapons and who had worked on the treaties to start Voices for a World Free of Nuclear Weapons. So he got a prayer, and it's this prayer. The beginning and the end are in your hands, O Creator of the universe. And in our hands, you have placed the fate of this planet. We who are tested by having both creative and destructive power in our free will, turn to you in sober fear and in intoxicating hope. We ask for your guidance and to share in your imagination in our deliberations about the use of nuclear force. Help us to lift fog of atomic darkness that hovers so pervasively over our earth, your earth, so that soon all eyes may see life magnified by your pure light. Bless all of us who wait today for your presence and who dedicate ourselves to achieve your intended peace and rightful equilibrium on earth. In the name of all that is holy and all that is hope.
That's not only beautiful, Monica, it's such a powerful prayer, isn't it?
Oh, it is. And we've been using it to open our little Voices group for 14 years. So it's been an important part of that particular community.
Yes.
But when we started doing actions last year around NPT and really claimed the prayer as who we are. What makes you or I differently? We bring in interfaith people from different traditions, spiritual beliefs, and no beliefs, but who want to add a moral call to this critical issue.
Yes, and never more critical than it is today.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So, Monica, you are a peace leader, and you've been, as I said earlier, so diligently doing this work. And as you said, in the early 80s, that you were inspired to do it. So can you tell us a little bit more about how your work looks today? And I would add, and what inspires you to keep on keeping on?
Well, Well, the keep on keeping on is knowing wonderful people like you, like all the people that I know in URI. How many
Mhm.
people can get up in the morning and contact people in hundreds of countries at the drop of a
Right.
hat? And
Yes.
so Zoom has brought us together in new ways. And one of the other cooperation circles that I'm incredibly involved with at the United Religions Initiative is our Women's Interfaith Network. And so the issues of women and the issue of nuclear weapons are two that are at such a fragile point. And we're at the brink of going backwards on both of these issues.
Yes.
And particularly because adding spirit is, I'm better at that than I am at patience of wording on a document or other things at the UN. But once those things are formed, for instance, the MDGs and the Sustainable Development Goals and
Mhm.
the resolution for the International Day of Peace and the second resolution that happened in 2001 and so many UN resolutions just give a clarion call, particularly the SDGs. I mean, it's a transformative agenda for
It
how we
is.
can build peace. But we try to either governments who approved this unanimously
Yes.
go out of their way to not live into it. It's like a
Right.
great idea, but it's somewhere
Right.
out there.
Yes.
And I have to say, that's also where nuclear weapons have been. You know, it was a great idea, but it's, yeah, even President Obama said, not in my lifetime, but I hope to see them ending. Well, I think we have to end them in his lifetime, or
Mhm.
there might not be a different choice. And it is so important that we grasp what we can, whatever that is, and realize that it is totally connected to all kinds of other issues as well. Because whether it is military spending, whether it is pollution, whether it's environmental degradation, whether it is nuclear winter, a nuclear weapon is not just a weapon. It is a weapon of mass destruction beyond what we can comprehend. And there are fewer and fewer people daily who were alive when the first nuclear weapon and the second nuclear weapon were used by the United States against Japan. But neither of those weapons can compare to the weapons that we have now. The difference in magnitude is so great. And the impact on the global, everything about it, from the climate to the economy to how it impacts the global transportation, there's just no way that life could ever be picked up as it was after World War II, because in World War II, there was no response.
Right.
And that's one of those places that peacemakers really, really have to consider. It's not the person who makes the first punch, it's the response.
Mhm.
And we really have to pause and figure out responses. And is it responsible or is it escalating?
Mhm.
And there are such difficult situations because what you try to do to be helpful can actually be insightful in a different way that was never intended. And sometimes it's insightful in a way that was supposed to look like it was never intended, but was very much intended. So there are a lot of things on the nuances, and yet we have war academies, we have military academies, we study war, we have put some of our best minds behind producing weapons. What would happen if we had this culture of peace that is so needed to
Yes.
take those brilliant minds and giving them something to do rather than to plan for destruction? And what kind of insanity is it to build something that is trillions of dollars with the hope that it'll never be used?
Right.
it just doesn't even begin to make sense.
No.
So this is a time when we have to really be together with people who not just share ideas, but who look at values, and values from a much broader position than just white person in the United States of America. We have to look at the world and the global needs, and just have to shift from destruction to care of our planet, care for one another, and care for really recognizing the truths, that there are some absolute truths in science, in mathematics, in things, and some of the things that we take as truths in social studies or softer sciences are true for at least the person who probably wrote them, but maybe not for the spectrum of people that are impacted by it. And
Right.
so it's time for a change. And I wish I could say that I thought it was easy and that I'm doing everything I can. I'm not, because there are all kinds of things that could be done, I think. But we at least really put our efforts into supporting a culture of peace. Books we read, the TV programs, the organizations we support, the people we like being around. I mean, it's a little disheartening, more than a little disheartening, when you have this concept that the world could end very easily with nuclear weapons. And yet, let's go on and make all these other guns, bullets, everything else that makes using weapons the way of legitimacy, that this is something that we should have in schools. I mean, the discussion on should teachers carry guns is almost unbelievable to
I
me.
know.
And I feel like I'm going on and on.
No,
yes, I am
it's
passionate
perfect.
about this, but
And it's perfect. So please feel free to go on and on.
what I do really hope is that we think about the fact that nuclear weapons really can be eliminated, that they serve no purpose. Both Reagan and Gorbachev and Putin and Biden agreed to the fact that a nuclear war can never be won. Therefore, it should never be fought. And it can't be won. Nobody wins in a nuclear war. I'm not sure anybody wins in any war.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And we always tell war from maybe good versus evil, maybe some holding up to some moral issue, but do we really look at the women and children and the environment that is left behind? Whether
Yes.
it is to scrape by with absolutely nothing at home while resources are going someplace else, or whether it's surviving after an attack.
Mhm.
And as I see you nodding, I think we can both
Yes.
say we all looked at the trauma around the earthquake in Turkey,
Yes.
around the hurricane in the United States recently, the destruction. We plan for that kind of destruction and worse. How can anybody look at that and say, this is a good idea to plan to do that to that place over there? It just doesn't make sense to me.
Right. Right. Monica, I love your passion, but also that it is grounded in the truth. And so thank you for sharing those very important truths about the urgency, I'll say, to end these nuclear weapons, because I agree with you totally that no one is going to win that war. And I agree with you also that war that nobody is the winner in wars either. And so just thank you for naming those truths and saying them out loud with such passion and conviction, and knowing that you are making a difference, Monica. You are a leader in taking action around the creation of a nuclear-free world. And so thank you for all of that. And there's so much more I want to ask you and hear from you. And it's time, I believe, for our 12 noon Peace Wave. And so I'm honored and delighted to bring Avon Madison into this circle by talking about and then practicing the Peace Wave. And for those of you who don't know, I can't imagine who that would be, but I'm sure there are some. Avon Madison is the co-founder of Pathways to Peace. She ascended about 1.5 years ago, and yet she continues to guide and direct and support our work from the other side of the veil. And so I very seldom can be in a position of talking about Pathways to Peace without raising Avon's name and honoring her work. And I know that you and Avon work so closely together, Monica, and I want to thank you for that as I bring Avon into our circle. Actually, she was already here, but I didn't name her until now. And so as we move into the Peace Wave, I'm going to take just a moment to set it up, and then we will take that moment of silence, that moment for peace. So, yeah. And so, you know the story probably even better than I do, Monica, because you were there and I wasn't. But the story that I was told was that the Peace Wave was introduced in 1983 by Avon in collaboration with Assistant Attorney General of the UN, Robert Mueller. And it was after the unanimous passage of the International Day of Peace resolution by the UN, which, if people don't know, the International Day of Peace is on September 21st, celebrated by millions of people around the world. And the Peace Wave was really created to make Peace Day every day by just at noon in every time zone to be able to pause for just a minute of silence and a moment of peace. And in that pausing, to be able to, however anyone envisions this, to hold a vision for peace, or to embrace peace energy, or to lift up an image of peace and embrace that in the heart. And with it occurring all around the world now, millions of people are practicing the Peace Wave on a daily basis. It creates that peace wave that encircles the planet at 12 noon in every time zone. So we encourage everyone here with us today to join that wave. And I am going to set up just a little bit of meditation so that we can move into that minute of silence, that moment of peace, the Peace Wave. So I would just ask that we just relax into our chairs and slow our breath and make it a little bit deeper. If it helps to count 5 counts on the inhale and 5 counts on the exhale. And if our mind strays, that's not a problem. Just bring it back to that sacred breath. We all breathe. It is a sacred connection to everyone and everything, a symbol of that connection through the breath. Let's just breathe together. That one breath. When you feel you've gotten a comfortable pace for your breathing, I'd like you to direct your attention to the center of your chest, the seat of the heart. And in your mind's eye, you can see that heart within you. That beautiful, loving energy that is nurturing, compassion, kindness, gratitude, and love that resides right there within you. You can see that energy and feel that energy. And we just allow ourselves to breathe through that sacred space, that heart space. You can't do it wrong, so just relax into it. And with every breath, we feel that energy, that love, that peace, that compassion, that kindness, that gratitude surging throughout our bodies, loving and nurturing everything it touches. As our heart grows larger and that energy flows into every part of us, knowing we are loved, that we are nurtured, that we are cared for and cared about, and that we are connected to all that is. And now with that energy full within us, that beautiful heart, loving, peaceful energy, we're going to move into that silence, that 1 minute of silence and moment of peace. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And now I'm going to bring Monica Willard back into our interview process, and we come back with an open heart to listen, to learn, and to be inspired. So, Monica, as you know, the name of the series of interviews is Pathways to Peace in the Ukraine. We've already touched on the threat of nuclear war in Ukraine. And of course, a threat to nuclear war in the Ukraine is a threat to nuclear war everywhere. And of course, we haven't even talked about the so many conflicts all around our world, and more conflicts today than we've had since 1947. And so this series, as I said, is leading up to that beloved community convergence on February 24th and 25th, and the summit on the Ukraine by Humanity Rising, February 27th through March 3rd. So as we're being called together, as I see these two gatherings and so many others that are occurring, as we're being called together, what are your thoughts? You've given us many, but I don't want to miss a thing. What are your thoughts on how the ways in which we as peace builders can approach our work together for peace in the Ukraine, of course, but also in our world at large?
I wish I had a magic wand
Yes.
that could make a difference. And yet, I think we do. If we can really unite our hearts and prayers and to bring in that help from the ethers, whether it is people and souls who have died, whether it is the Christ in each of us connecting with the God that you honor, the power. If we really stop to think about that power of love that is being shed on us from afar, if we can let it in. And if we can let that in, it can flow through us and it can make a big difference. And so connectedness to me is just a huge part of it, but not just connecting with harsh and violent thoughts. It's really trying to connect with what is it that we cherish. We are holding the fate of our planet in our hands right now. We are the first generation to really have that happen. And more, yes, it's been going on for generations. And then there have been stories of wars in every religious writings. Mm-hmm. But we hold things that are so dangerous that we have to be more tangible. We have to create different fields. I mean, the thought that there would be a nuclear exchange, even 5 years ago, was still pretty remote. We didn't think we needed the weapons. We certainly don't need to spend the money on it. But would somebody really use them? The treaty to prohibit nuclear weapons calls for the threat to be gone. Well, that threat is real, and it has held a fog of atomic darkness that we pray that will be lifted in the prayer that we use. But we have to recognize that we have limits. This is a limited planet. We have to respect it, and we must go back to that indigenous wisdom of thinking 7 generations ahead. Mm-hmm. And whether it's water, whether it is safe soil, whether it is how we get along within our own communities, we must start breaking new ground in being kind, in being caring, in being frugal, in being less violent, even non-violent. I mean, when you think of the transition of India under Gandhi from the British Empire done with non-violence, we don't teach that. We don't support that. And the culture of war is just inundating us everywhere, whether it's video games, whether it's TV and radio and news, and just how mean can we be? How disrespectful? Who could have thought about mass shootings at elementary schools? I mean, there's just something so wrong, and we have to admit that letting these things go can never make America great again. Because you cannot be great and think it's okay to kill innocent children. And people might take that in a different way and look at it on the level of abortion. And I think that we still need to have personal beliefs that our health, our body, our planet needs to be protected. Mother Earth is under attack, as are women. And I don't mean to get it off the subject, but I find it very hard to think about people who absolutely went crazy having to wear a mask for public health, and yet they think they could have control over another person's body and tell them what is best for them by their law, by their what values, by their preachers. I don't get it. And I hope we never revert back and lose some of the things where we have made changes so that women are taking responsibility for their own bodies. We can use our own names. We can have credit. We can do all kinds of things. But one of the things that we really do and have been bred to do, I think, is love. And giving birth to new ways and to new life. And we need to think of our planet as a rejuvenation time. And in this rejuvenation, we need to take out those things that are so dangerous to life on this planet. And to me, they are definitely nuclear weapons. There are things that are causing climate change. There are all kinds of things. And to show the interconnection, and we're saying, oh, the algorithm of how we're heating up quicker, it seems to be being faster than what we thought. Well, not only have we not met the norms that were set up by people who did know what they were talking about, or air control, water, all kinds of things, but there is a whole, we don't consider the military. Every bullet, everything about military life is not factored into those algorithms on climate change. Military things are just totally non-exempt to some of the things. So we have to consider it's speeding up even quicker because of purposeful mathematics and then the other ways of making choices. So let us find some ways that we can really learn the truth and live into it, but accepting that there are limits. And one of those guides just has to be loving thy neighbor as thyself, and also loving the extra help, the energy, the God that many of us believe in. And for those that don't believe in it, I still think there's a spiritual sense that you can see the gift of a tree. You can see a flowing river. You can see clean water coming out of your tap. And we must know that these are things that everyone deserves. So let us find some ways of building bridges, working out, reaching out, meeting the other, because sometimes the biggest problem is that people just don't know someone who's different. But to think about the fact that what is right for you may be totally right for you and not totally right for someone else. So where is that common ground? And we've been able to figure it out by having traffic signals. You know, there are things that we do agree on. So let's find that common ground and celebrate it and expand it. And that usually happens, from my experience, through URI, where people from different faiths come together to have a cooperation circle at URI. You have to have 3 different faith or spiritual traditions coming together and choosing a local goal, a local theme, and working together so that any decision that's made is made with an interfaith base. And you must have 3 different traditions, a minimum of 7 people, and we have thousands in some of our cooperations. But they still have to have a variety of space or faiths or spiritual traditions agreeing on the local emphasis. And I'm going to tell an old story from URI because I love it. Is there time?
Good.
It
Yes,
has nothing
absolutely.
to do with this. In India, when they did a blood drive, they didn't mark it with the different castes. And so people were just able to give blood. And then in this area, it was able to be shared with those who needed that blood type, as opposed to it coming from a specific place to a specific caste of person to another one. And so they got to know people in a different way in this community by building a blood bank. And then they worked in, and I might be converging 2 stories actually, but they were saying people or another group worked together to buy a local ambulance that could be used by anyone in need without consideration of a caste or where they lived. And because they worked together on building an ambulance, and then they had a successful thing, they were able to unlock a cemetery that nobody could decide who could be buried in it. For 100 years, they couldn't, and it was a local thing, but it had been totally locked up and nobody could use it because nobody thought it should go to the other person. But once they realized that they could work together for blood and to get an ambulance, they could really solve an ancient traditional problem because they got to know. And I don't know what the magic wand is for us looking towards Russia and the Ukraine. I know that justice must be done. I support the people on their land and I pray for all of the Russian people who want nothing to do with war, for being constricted into this service and are being forced to do things against their will. So I just want us to not condemn all the Russian people and want to obliterate them, because it's not all of them. And we must find ways to work together in some way, whether it's teddy bears, whether it is sharing things on a computer, whether it is reaching out for feeding people, clothing them. Those things make a difference. And I just really hope that this year will end with people, instead of talking about more bombs and more supplies that way, really putting the effort, the same amount of effort, more effort into some sort of negotiation somewhere. It has to make a difference.
Thank you so much for that, Monica. And I hear in your passion the urgency that must happen and must happen soon. And I also love what you said about, and it's just a truth, isn't it, that we can often objectify, abuse, and violate people we don't know. But when we get to know the others that may appear to be different from us, we discover our common humanity. And in that common humanity lies the answer to war. And so I just thank you so much for that. I know that in the heart, in your heart, in the heart of our peace leaders, there is the spark, if not a fire, of of knowing, finally knowing that we are all one.
Mm.
And once we know that, then we can't violate our neighbors on the other side of the world any more than we could violate our own family members. So that gives me hope. And I love what you said about what keeps you keeping on is really those beautiful global connections that you've forged of other people who are dedicated to peace. We can come at it differently, we can define it differently, but there is a mass of people around our globe that are dedicated to peace. And I think all of us to some degree are hungry for peace because it's our innate nature to be peaceful. When we remember who we are, we recognize that we're peace. So thank you, thank you, thank you for all of those pieces. Yes.
And I have to hold up my little piece that I have on my desk.
Yes.
Because I use it to sign every email. I use it that the words, may peace prevail on earth.
Yes.
It is something that has been a part of the peace wave so much. It is
yes.
just a part of so many people. And I just think if people have a mantra, a saying that is peace, whether it's breathe in world, breathe out peace, whether it's may peace prevail on earth, whether it's a special prayer, we do have the power
yes.
to create a culture of peace if we live it. So,
yes. Yes. And that inspires and gives hope, knowing that we are powerful co-creators, right?
absolutely. And that we're not alone.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Together it's going to happen.
Yes.
And we want it to happen very soon.
Absolutely. And there's some anniversaries that you celebrate with joy. A year marking of a war that is senseless,
yes.
that is not being addressed with all of the diplomatic powers that are available. And it just has to shift. So let us add our prayers and know that everybody praying for the fate of this planet
yes.
and the future of this planet make a difference.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So
thank you. It is
my
a
goodness.
joy.
It's so joyful for me to have you here. And so we are going to close by bringing in our dear sister Dot, who can't be with us, but who influenced this series, this Pathways to Peace in the Ukraine. And excuse me. I've been talking too much today. And so we're going to close with Dot's Global Silent Minute. And so we're going to actually bring her spirit and presence into this sacred circle that you've created with us, and everyone who is in this circle with us. And so, but before we do that, I just want to thank you again, Monica. You are such an extraordinary peace builder. So grateful for your work and for you really as a person. You stand for all the right things in the face of whatever winds may blow. And I so appreciate that because I do believe that it's time for all of us, and you've called us into this, to be bold in our work for peace, and to take action in whatever way we're called to activate that peace on our planet. So before I kind of go through my little bit of announcements and then bring up Dot's global silent minute. I wonder if you have any last words or anything that you would like to say you haven't yet had an opportunity to say.
I just really want to invite everyone, every organization, to plan for August the 6th. It happens to be a Sunday this year, but it also starts in Japan on August the 5th from the time zone in the United States. And like birthdays, it can be observed in other ways. But to educate yourself, to reach out to others, contact our politicians. There are so many things that we could do instead of spending money on nuclear weapons. There is so much love that we can pour into our prayers to shift a call, to do something to shift it. Just as we are praying for those that were killed in Turkey, Mother Nature, how can we allow that kind of thing to be done and planned for? So let us think about what we can do to really change what is acceptable to us and to how we live so that our light shines with joy. It can't be proselytized. It can't be screamed at someone. We just have to live it. And I invite everyone to live it in the way that you possibly can. August the 6th or any day and every day. Join us in a peace way.
We're so looking forward to joining you, Monica. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
And so in closing, I would love to invite those of you who have come into our sacred circle today and those who would like to be here and couldn't to join us on the remaining days of these interviews. We have 2 days left, and those interviews are going to be incredible. David Wick is going to be tomorrow, and then Nina Meyerhoff is our last interview. And I loved, Monica, when you talked about teddy bears, because of course, Nina began her work with Hope House and still distributes teddy bears at the border of the Ukraine. And so she has some amazing reflections for us from the edge of everything that's occurring. And David, of course, is a long time peace advocate. I know you know David and love David, Monica. And he is actually going to be presenting perspectives of peace in times of war and wisdom from Avon Madison as one who knew her well. And so David has been going through the archives of Pathways to Peace to really apply Avon's wisdom to this issue of how do we respond to the call around the war in the Ukraine. And David's presentation will be tomorrow. So it's always 11:30 to 12:30 Eastern time in this same Zoom room. So thank you, Monica, and thank you to our beloved audience. And I'm now going to begin to Dot's global silent minute. So we're going to bring in Dot's energy, and I'm going to do my best to channel that energy as we move into our closing global silent minute. So, in Dot's own words, we are now going to be linking our hearts across distance, both sides of the veil, to invoke the spirit of peace as we hold the intention of the healing of nations, both within and between, for global cooperation, peace, and freedom. As we usher in the era of peace and put an end to all war and suffering. Let us prepare to enter the silence together. We take a deep breath and activate the spirit of peace within our own hearts. And we link our fiery hearts across distance. Now we take another moment and we invite all those on the other side of the veil to cooperate with us. We will now go into the silence, distributing our intention for everlasting peace. Yes, thank you, Dot. Thank you, Monica. Thank you again to all who are here. At Pathways to Peace, we always say, please know that you are a pathway to peace. Wherever you've been, wherever you are today, whatever you are doing in your life, please know you are a pathway to peace. And may peace prevail on earth. May peace prevail on earth. May peace prevail on earth. Thank you.